Hey everyone, this video is going to be talking about how to create an MLA outline and write a conclusion. So we will be talking about both of these elements within this short presentation, and hopefully that will help you understand a little bit better like the organizational side of things as far as your essay goes. If you remember from the introductory video, uh, everything in your essay needs to connect back. It's about the overall organization. It's about maintaining that trust that you have with the reader. If you haven't yet watched the introductory video, please make sure that you do so, so that way you can see how your reader would expect you to construct an introduction, the types of things that need to be in there, and what you need to do in order to accomplish introducing your ideas in a way that your reader can understand and appreciate. So this presentation is also going to be available on Blackboard. It's a clickable presentation, so you can kind of scroll around within it to make it a little bit easier for yourself. Because outlines have a few moving components, I wanted to make sure that you could always revert back or refer back and see what's happening in other parts of the outline as well. So this is broken down into a few different levels in this presentation. So we've got MLA outlines, just in general, topic sentences, supporting details, examples and explanations, and then conclusions. Okay. There's also a full example of the MLA outline and conclusion available to you on Blackboard, so definitely take a look at that if you want to see how this should be constructed. So regarding outlines, let's take a look here and see what happens inside an outline. Okay, so in your outline, what you want to do is revise your introduction and thesis statement. Revision is something that we'll be doing continuously throughout this term. Between each type of assignment, you want to make sure that you revise. You created an introduction, so revise that introduction. Make sure that it's to the quality that you need. Constant tweaking and adjustment based on your understanding of your topic is really important to be able to really convey the information that you want to the reader. Okay, you want to make sure that you include an outline of at least 3 body paragraphs. So this has to include or should include at least 6 examples, 2 per paragraph, so that way your reader can clearly see what it is you're trying to say in your essay. And then it should include a working conclusion. Now, the reason for each of these 3 elements for their inclusion in this assignment is that you want to make sure that you set yourself up for success in the draft. And if you do this correctly and put some effort into it, your conversion into your draft really isn't going to be that intensive. Okay, and that's what I want to make sure that you're set up for success in that way. Okay, so if you do each of these things, converting to your to your rough draft or your draft, because remember, each draft that you write should be considered your final draft until you get comments, and then you revise again. It should be the best draft that you can create for yourself. Okay, so these are the elements that you'll want to include in an outline, so that way you can move on to the next. Now, as far as what this should look like, this is the overall idea of what should be within each of the body paragraphs. Okay, this is one body paragraph. So you want to have a topic sentence that tells your reader everything that's going to happen within that paragraph. Okay, it ties the supporting details together. It shows why your examples are there, which you want to maintain that idea throughout. Keep reminding the reader what it is this paragraph is trying to prove throughout. But your topic sentence needs to clearly state what the goal of the paragraph is. So you have your topic sentence, you have your supporting detail. What is it that the example is trying to elucidate for the reader? And then that's what your example or explanation is. Remember, you want to show your reader, not tell. So use sensory details, use information that's relevant, but also that tells the reader what you're trying to say, that shows us what it is, like the reason that you believe this thing. Okay, and then once you give the example or explanation, you want to explain that. Okay, so you want to make sure that you do that for each of your examples, so that way your reader clearly understands why it is that you say this thing. Now, this particular body paragraph includes 2 supporting details with 2 examples or explanations for each. You don't need to have, all of these parts. If you only wanted to do A with A1, A1 little I, A2 little I, and then move into your transition, that's totally okay. Remember, this essay, is all about showing. So if you can show with 2 examples, then that's fabulous, okay? But just make sure that you can clearly do that. And then you want to have a transition sentence that ties your supporting details together and relates it back to your topic sentence. What did this paragraph just do? And how does it relate to that next one that you're writing? Right? You want to use little keywords, kind of like in your introduction, right, with the funnel method, how we kind of carry language into each sentence to transition from the one idea in your body paragraph to the idea that's happening in your next body paragraph. Okay, and keep in mind, I know it says there should be at least 3 body paragraphs for this essay. Keep in mind that if this is for the illustration example essay, there can be 2, right? Because that one's a little bit shorter. This is just a general idea. Typically, for an essay that's 3 or more pages, you want to have at least 3 body paragraphs. Since the illustration example essay is a little bit shorter, 2 body paragraphs could suffice as long as you provide enough information for the reader to really see and to hit that length requirement. Okay, so those are the things to keep in mind. Now, as far as topic sentences go, topic sentences for this assignment should be full sentences that tell your reader what each paragraph is aiming to accomplish. Now, I say full sentences because you want to make sure that you include a couple of things in these topic sentences. So for topic sentences, the things you want to keep in mind is that they need to relate back to the thesis statement by using those same keywords from the thesis. So you want to remind them of the overall goal of the paper, so the statement of purpose. And then you want to remind them of the forecast element that this body paragraph is trying to discuss. I say trying, but really is successfully discussing, right? We want to stay positive here. So make sure that you identify the statement of purpose and the forecast element that the paragraph is discussing. And then you want to make sure that all the other information that's in that paragraph develops the idea of the topic sentence. If you go off topic, then you're no longer staying relevant to your topic sentence. So everything needs to relate back. Now remember, all the information in the paragraph should be developing the idea in the topic sentence. The topic sentence is specifying one element from the thesis statement. So everything in your essay is interconnected. This is what I was talking about in the introductory video about having, or in the introduction video about having a formula, right? Essays generally follow this formula. Each thing ties into the next thing, but then those ties also work backwards, okay? So not only does it develop and follow a logical organization, but it also all reverts back to remind the reader the purpose of what each part of the essay is trying to do. Okay? If you want to think of a topic sentence as a gatekeeper in regards to keeping all of your information for each paragraph on topic, that can be helpful. The only things allowed to pass through that gate of the topic sentence should be information that's relevant to that topic sentence. Okay? So you want to make sure that you keep on topic in that paragraph, okay, for whichever body paragraph you're working with. And if you do that, then each body paragraph is staying relevant to the thesis statement, which is the thing you promised your reader you would stay relevant to, okay? So keep that in mind as you go. Now, let's see, everything in your essay hinges on a thesis statement. That is the thing that you tell your reader that you will follow, like I've just said. Okay, so let's look at our example thesis statement. Ordinary American citizens are coping with the economic recession by eliminating the purchases of non-essential products, expanding their educations, and finding additional ways to supplement their primary incomes. Now, note that your thesis statement should be revised from your thesis statement assignment before your essay draft is submitted, right? Always make sure that you're tweaking and thinking about how to make your ideas more succinct, how to make your ideas easier to understand. And doing that really will provide you and your reader with a better essay experience, okay? So this is the thesis statement that we're going to work with. So let's see how topic sentences are working. Before I shift to the next slide, I want to look at the parts of the thesis statement one more time to make sure we're all on the same level, I guess. So we have the statement of purpose. Ordinary American citizens are coping with the economic recession. okay? That is the thing that you want to um, work to prove throughout the essay. Now, that's the statement of purpose. The forecast element for the first body paragraph is going to be eliminating the purchases of non-essential products. Second body paragraph is going to talk about expanding their educations, right? They're referring to ordinary American citizens. And then third body paragraph is talking about how these ordinary American citizens are finding additional ways to supplement their primary incomes. So everything that happens within the body of the essay is referring back to this one sentence. And that's what ties everything together. So if you have a strong thesis statement and you follow and tie everything back, you will have a strong paper. Okay, so let's take a look here. I have highlighted the forecast elements in different colors. The first one is obviously in yellow, eliminating the purchases of non-essential products. So our first topic sentence for body paragraph 1 could be something like, first, Americans are coping with the recession by eliminating the purchases of non-essential items. Okay, keep in mind that we want to make sure that we are reiterating what our statement of purpose is as we go. So something as simple as basically just rephrasing that statement of purpose, popping it into the topic sentence, and then adding the forecast element is fine. Okay, then we see that again. Expanding their educations is that second forecast element from the thesis. So then our second topic sentence could be, second, people are deciding to expand their educations to deal with the economic crisis. We can see that we've got that idea of people deciding to do this particular thing in order to cope with that economic crisis, right? Referring back to the statement of purpose and that second forecast element. Same thing for the third. Third, people are coping with the economic crisis by finding innovative ways to supplement their primary income. Again, we have the statement of purpose. People are coping with the economic crisis. How? Third forecast element, finding innovative ways to supplement their primary form of income. Okay, and by explicitly linking these keywords back to our thesis statement, we're making sure to signpost as we go so that our reader knows where we are in the argument that we're making. Okay, so this is kind of how everything ties together. This is what I'm saying about how constructing an outline really helps you understand and your reader understand how you're breaking down the ideas. Now, I want to point out really quickly that you do not need to have first, second, and third in your topic sentences. You don't need those words. The reason for that is if I were to just put my cursor in there and delete those words, Americans are coping with the recession by eliminating the purchases of non-essential items. That is a perfectly complete sentence. You do not need to say, first, blah, blah, blah. If you want to, you absolutely can. If that helps you stay on track, that's fine. If you want to include it in your outline, but not in your draft, that's also fine, right? It's something that you can use to keep yourself on track, but you don't need it for your reader to understand your ideas. As long as you've got this statement of purpose and what this paragraph is trying to argue, then you're good. Okay, so keep that in mind. You don't need first, second, and third to help you do that. If you want it, you can do it, but you don't need it. So moving down to supporting details help narrow our topic sentence. Okay, so we say, okay, so this is in the thesis statement, the overall thing the essay is trying to prove. And then we have our topic sentence. I'm going to prove it in this way right now. And then our supporting detail explains how it is that you've come to that conclusion that this topic sentence idea is working to prove that. Okay, you're basically backing up your topic sentence, which in turn backs up the assertion you make in your thesis statement. So some rules about supporting details. Remember that it's developing the idea from the topic sentence of your particular body paragraph. It takes that broader idea, which is still narrower than the overall thesis statement, and narrows it further. And then it shows the reader why you believe what you said in the topic sentence. And giving the reader that information is really helpful because without examples that are relevant and that are clear and that show the reader what you're trying to say, you've got nothing, okay? So make sure you back up your ideas from your topic sentence and from your thesis. So How can we see this? Well, let's see. Again, we've got an A and a B for supporting details. Remember, you don't necessarily need both of those. You could, just have one of them and then explain using examples. So we've got first, Americans are coping with the recession by eliminating the purchases of non-essential items. Okay, this paragraph is trying to say, okay, these are the non-essential items that people are eliminating and why. So our supporting details are eating at a restaurant and buying expensive shoes. Do you need to do these things? No. And that's what this essay is trying to say. People do not need these two things in order to succeed, right? In order to cope with this economic recession, we can take these out of our budget. So this is where the specific examples and explanations come in. Remember that number one and little I work together to explain why your supporting details advance your assertion on the sentence or in the topic sentence. So examples and explanations work together to show your examples from the primary or secondary source if you're using sources, and that's for later. For this essay, for the illustration example essay, you want to focus on your ideas that are happening in your own mind, right? These are things, your topics are things that you have experience with. So make sure you use your own experiences as your primary sources here, okay? Number one, number two, and number three will be your example, right? If you have three, right? So what is it that you're trying to show? What is that thing? And then you develop it using little I, and kind of going in Roman numerals after that. Those will include the explanation of how that example develops the idea and the supporting detail. Remember this one thing. You want to make sure that your reader clearly understands how to use your example. If you don't tell them, they may make the wrong choice. Okay? You want to remember that you need to hold your reader's hand as you step through your ideas. And that's a really big thing because you don't want to make an assertion, make a leap, and then have your reader kind of look back on it and say, that's not where I was thinking this was going to go, right? You don't want your reader to question it. You want to say, okay, this is the thing I think, this is how I'm going to show you, and then now I'm going to explain how those two things work together. So your reader sits back and thinks, okay, even though that wasn't initially my thought, I understand where this person is coming from, okay? And you want to make sure that they have those tools to do that. So we can see this is now one body paragraph. First, Americans are coping with the recession by eliminating the purchases of non-essential items, our topic sentence. Eating at restaurants, our supporting detail. For example, eating at a restaurant 3 times a week can cost an average family $100, right? Could be more if people don't budget very well, right? Could be maybe a little bit less, but still it's expensive. Instead of spending so much money eating at restaurants, families are opting to cook at home so they can have leftover food. So one is our example, and then little I is our explanation, right? It ties it back. It explains how that example is referring back to the topic sentence. So that's how you kind of want to think about it. Everything makes little jumps back and forth. Okay, topic sentence jumps down, capital A jumps down, but then each of the different elements can work their way back as well. Okay, you've got this little I that works its way back to number one. Number one and little I work their way back to capital A. Capital A works its way back to Roman numeral 1. Okay, so you want to think about it like that. And then we've got our transition sentence. Overall, people are beginning to realize that purchasing non-essential items can add a significant amount of money to the family emergency fund, right? It just ties everything together. It says, okay, so we get rid of these non-essential expenditures, and now we've got the ability to save is much greater, right? So we want to kind of tie everything in that paragraph together. And then the idea of money, right, that the economy, the finance, that's the part of the transition that we can use to bridge into the next body paragraph, since each of the body paragraphs are essentially about money. Okay? Now, conclusions. How do we end this essay? Well, in conclusions, you want to provide the reader with a reminder of what they just read. What did you talk about? Right? They've just read your work for 2, 3, 4 pages. So remind them what your purpose is for writing and the conclusions that you've drawn and expect them to draw from your essay. Restate your thesis statement across multiple sentences to do this. This gives the reader closure about what you talked about because it reminds them of the things you've just said. They walk away remembering these are the main points that this essay talked about. It clearly makes sense. This is a well-written essay that's kind of tied everything back together. Okay? Make sure that you don't give the reader any new information in the conclusion. Giving the reader new information in the conclusion means that you haven't taken the time to develop the idea. Okay, if they have questions about it, if the reader has questions, you don't have time to answer them. So don't provide new material for them to work with right at the end. Okay, make sure that new material happens early and make sure that you address all new material that you give them. Okay, bringing that in the conclusion isn't good for the essay, just for the fact that you can't possibly uh, explain enough about it for the reader to feel confident and comfortable. And you want them to finish your essay feeling confident and comfortable about what you've just talked about. So, an example conclusion, again with the signposting in closing, you don't need that, but you can have it if you want. So, in closing, the recession has fundamentally altered the way that people around the country are handling their finances. Right? This is a representation of the statement of purpose. Okay, they realize that previous periods of careless spending are over. They're cutting out non-essential expenditures from within their budgets. They also are securing their careers as well as their futures by returning to school and furthering their education. Lastly, in an effort to sustain already strained financial resources within the household, people are creating innovative ways to supplement their income. You can see those are the forecast elements. I know on the screen I say reiterations of the thesis statement. Essentially, that's accurate, right? It's just reminding the reader the things that you've talked about, but it's those forecast elements, the main points of each of those 3 paragraphs that the essay discussed. And then we have that last sentence. All of these are very real ways in which people are dealing with and adapting to this grim economic reality, right? Again, reminding the purpose of the essay. Okay, so you want to make sure that in your outline, you kind of do all of these things to tie your essay together. That's the function of an outline, to make sure your organizational plan is carried out in each of the parts of your essay. And each of those parts are your thesis statement, your topic sentences, your supporting details, your examples, and then your explanations, as well as your conclusion. Everything needs to tie together. The conclusions also tie back to your introduction in total, right? Because we talked a lot about finances. We talked a lot about the economic recession in general. We talked a lot about how people are making changes, okay? So you want to make sure that all of the parts of your essay are working together to further the point that you're identifying right at the beginning, okay? And that's the best way to write an essay. Because if you don't have that solid organizational plan, you're going to lose your reader, and you don't want to do that. All right, so thank you for watching this video about outlines. I know it's a little bit longer. I apologize for that. I'm going to be posting little links where you can kind of jump to where you can see specific information about the topic sentences, about the supporting details, things like that. So you can kind of click through at your leisure and make sure that you have a solid understanding of those things. Okay, but until next time, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, great week, all of that. And I will be posting another video soon. Thanks very much.